Hello and welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp. I'm your host, Andrew Moses. My guest today, Hannah Huesman, a mental skills coach with the Philadelphia Phillies. Hannah, welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for having me. Excited to be here today.
I'm excited to sit down and chat with you. So, mental skills coach, for my listeners and viewers, let's dig into it. What is a mental skills coach?
Yeah, so a mental skills coach is just like any other coach, but instead of focusing, specifically on something physical or, getting stronger or getting faster, we focus solely on the mental aspects of your game. And, part of our job is to make sure just as hard as you're working on the physical aspects of your game or your performance, you're also working on the mental aspects of your performance. So anything from confidence to motivation, to resilience, to enjoyment, right? It comes back to, do you enjoy what you do? And we can help with that. And so a big part of being a mental performance coach is making sure we're bridging the gap between the physical and the mental. So not only trying to make your mind work for you, but how does your mind work for you during physical performances too?
So is this something that's relatively new to sport, the concept of mental skills and the focus on it?
Good question. I think it's been around for a while. I think it's starting to get the traction it's kind of wanted to get in the past recently, as of probably the last 5 to 10 years. Every Major League Baseball organization has a mental skills coach. Now they usually have more than just one. Most of them have a team of mental skills coaches. So it's been around for a while, like 50 plus years. There's been coaches doing it, and even former players have done it and haven't really called it anything, right? They've kind of learned mental skills through experience. And now one of the best ways I heard it put is you can learn it through experience, or now we have professionals who are teaching it. So you don't have to necessarily go through all of the trials and errors and failures and all of that. You can learn it and be proactive about it beforehand. So it's been around for a while, but the traction in the last 5 or so years has really picked up some momentum.
Well, it's interesting as I think back, right? You think about a lot of athletes, maybe on an individual basis, that have talked about the importance of mental skills and other aspects of their game and their life, whether it be diet or physical fitness, right? Like Tom Brady has always been such an advocate of kind of all aspects of your life playing into your on-field performance. It's interesting. Why do you think it took so long why did it take so long for teams and organizations to adopt it and integrate it into the way they do business?
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer. And the first thing that comes to mind is it's not super easy to measure and to understand, right? Okay, this kid looks really confident. Is he or she really confident? We don't know, right? Because there's so many pieces of mental performance that are intangibles. So I think a big piece of it is knowing how to measure it, and then knowing also that you're not just born being mentally tough. Some people are, right? And they're raised to practice resilience, and they've failed a lot in their past lives or whatever it is. But also, I think people are starting to realize this is another aspect of your performance that can be coached. It's not just something you're born with. It's something you can make better. And just like everything else in life, if we can make it better, everybody wants to and is willing to put in the effort to try and get it better, because you want all pieces of your game to be to the best of your ability. And so now I think people are realizing not only is it a thing, but it's something that you can work on and actually get better, which is going to improve your overall performance. So, especially getting into elite level performers, right? They're always trying to find what separates them from everybody else. And I think the mental component is just another aspect that can set you apart from the person standing next to you.
So Hannah, you're a former 2-sport Division I athlete, basketball and softball,
yep.
Correct? Basketball and softball?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. So how did mental skills play a part in your career as an athlete and now as a professional? So talk about your experience as an athlete and going through some of this.
Yeah. So I love this question because I always think back, when I was playing, I had no concept of what mental skills were. You always hear oh, it's half mental, or just be tough or be confident or stay calm, but you never really knew how to do that. And, every now and then you'd get some advice from somebody and you may try it and, it may stick, it may not, but it wasn't until my last semester of my undergrad career in college. And I took an elective course, basically an introduction to sports psychology 101. And it was the last semester. I was playing softball. we had, probably 2-3 months left of the season of my career, right? I knew I wasn't going to play professionally. And I was like, wow, I'm just now learning this and like understanding the importance of this. And so it was kind of at that moment where I was like, why didn't we have access to this? And why doesn't everyone have access to this? And at that point, I was also like, I always knew I wanted to be involved in sport, just really didn't know to what capacity and performance. And this was when I was like, okay, this is definitely what I need to be doing. And I want to learn anything and everything I can about the field of sport and performance psychology and motor behavior and how the mind and the body work together to produce optimal performance. And so then I went to grad school at the University of Tennessee and learned everything and started picking apart my career, my personal career, and the strengths that I had and the weaknesses that I had that I wasn't even aware of. And I think that's the key, is that all mental skills, all mental performance starts with knowing. It starts with that awareness piece, right? I always say, if you don't know, you can't grow. If you don't know what's going on upstairs, there's no way you can do anything to change it because you're not aware. And so it's this, I look back and I'm like frustrated that I didn't know and didn't have the skills to practice. But at the same time, I'm like, you don't know what you don't know. And so, I was doing everything I could with the skills that I had then. And so that's why I'm very passionate about getting the word out about mental performance, because people don't know until they do know. So trying to spread the word about that is very important to me.
So we'll get to the work you're doing. We'll get to the work you're doing with the Philadelphia Phillies in a moment here. Yeah. But I would imagine this mental skills work applies to anything almost, right? It's not just on-field performance in sport.
100%. We're all performers, right? Even you right now, you're performing, like doing a podcast. Like if you have a job, I say, if you have a job, if you are a spouse, if you are a parent, if you are out on a walk, right? We're always performing. And so it's mental performance skills. Just like we have to physically break a sweat, we got to mentally break a sweat too. And yeah, every single person is a performer, which means every single person can work on their mental performance skills.
we're performing 24/7 right now. We've got our two girls going to school in the living room virtually. The teachers are performing more than ever. It's really an interesting time. So, okay, so let's talk about you acknowledge kind of the importance of mental skills and mental toughness, mental fitness, the opportunity that maybe I want to say you missed during your playing career that you wished you had been more engaged in. And then take me from there through grad school to the Philadelphia Phillies. And then we'll talk a little bit about how the organization is implementing some of these tactics.
Yeah. So from grad school, I did a couple internships. I worked at an international junior golf academy. I never played golf, but I knew it was a very mental sport. And so it was a cool, like I went and got to teach them how to use mental skills, and they taught me how to play golf, which I now love golf. And if you ever want to get a mental skills coach exposed, put them on the golf course, because just like anybody else when they're playing golf, it's got its highs and its lows. But so I did a few internships, and then I graduated. And then my last internship after I graduated was actually with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So I went down and worked with them for a season and got exposed to kind of the baseball world and how it works, and absolutely loved it. And was kind of at the point where I needed to get a full-time job and not just do internships. So I ended up moving to New York City, and I worked at a private practice there doing the exact same thing, mental performance coaching. But instead of only coaching athletes, that's where I got my most exposure on working with all types of performers. So I worked with firefighters. I worked with parents of children who are athletes. I worked with actors and actresses, CEOs, VPs of companies. Like, it was really, really cool, and exposed me to exactly what you just said, right? That mental performance is not just for elite level athletes. We are literally all performing on a daily basis, and the impact it can make for anyone. And then from there, I realized I really missed the baseball scene, just feeling like a part of the team. And since I played softball, like, it's always been really, really close and something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And so I started looking for opportunities again in baseball, and landed a job with the Phillies, and I'm about to start season 4 with them. So it's right.
Heading to Clearwater.
Yep, heading to Clearwater for spring training. Exactly.
That's right. Yeah. So you talked there about actors, and obviously we've talked about athletes and firefighters, young athletes, old athletes, CEOs. Do you find people are willing to embrace these concepts right off the bat, or does it take some time?
It depends, right? It depends. And especially at the private practice, they were kind of looking for someone. So they're very, for the most of the time, open to it. But I mean, you get people who, it's kind of like just the concept of like people who like working out and people who don't like working out, right? Like people like working on their mental skills, and some people are like, that's the furthest thing in my mind that I want to worry about. And some people need it more than others, right? And some people like really do have a lot of like, I don't want to say you're born with it. I want to say you're raised with it. Like your parents might have instilled resilience and confidence and emotional regulation, right? When you were growing up, and some people didn't. And so they have to learn that now as adults and teenagers. And so I think that's important when it comes to, are you open or are you not? But I think even more importantly is if you're open or not, making sure the mental skills coach meets them where they're at, right? Because you can't really force someone to practice mental skills, right? If they're not ready or willing or realize the importance of mental performance on their actual physical performance, it's going to be hard to force them to work on it. You can talk about it in casual conversations. They can listen to this podcast, and get little pieces, but until they're really ready and acknowledging that, okay, this is a big part of my game and I really want to work on this, will it really be truly effective? And it can actually do more damage than good if you force mental skills on somebody. So it's definitely a dance trying to figure out where they're at and meet them where they're at and what they need versus like forcing them to do things that they really don't want to do.
How can someone listening today, just anybody, right? Whether they're in sales, in banking, in sports, how can they determine if they are ready to start that journey?
That's a good question. If you can, again, kind of going back to practicing awareness and looking in on yourself and like, am I doing everything I possibly can to be the best version of myself? And if your answer is yes, great. If your answer is no, maybe there's some areas where I can improve. And one of them is definitely taking care of my mental performance and my mental health. Then maybe that's a really good starting point. And maybe you realize, hey, I know I need to work on this. I know I haven't worked on it, but I'm really not wanting to put in the time yet. Then maybe you're not ready. But it's something that maybe you should keep an open mind about and kind of continuously explore. Like, as you see yourself progressing, are you ever held back by anything? Is it your confidence? Is it your calmness under pressure, your composure, right? Your resiliency? And if you're finding that you don't have those, maybe it's showing a weakness that you have. And maybe by creating that awareness and knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, you realize, okay, this is actually something I really need to look into and work on. So it's a lot of looking within and being a good self-evaluator, which is a mental skill in and of itself, and sometimes really challenging to know what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses, and being realistic. That's sometimes a very hard thing to do.
So let's dig into, you're going to make the journey to Clearwater, like pitchers and catchers in mid-February. Mm-hmm. I've spent a lot of time in the spring in Port St. Lucie and Jupiter and other places on the other coast. Mm-hmm. But this show is called Everybody Pulls the Tarp, and it's loosely connected to baseball in many ways. And a lesson that I learned one summer interning in minor league baseball that I've taken with me my entire life. And that is this mindset I have that everybody pulls the tarp. Great teams, great organizations are powered by people who do unexpected things. Mm-hmm. And, as many of my listeners have heard the story a zillion times. My first day working in minor league baseball, I think I'm there to learn the front office work. And they tell me to bring a pair of dirty, old clothes, keep them in the locker room, and that I need to help the grounds crew pull the tarp on and off the field when it rains. And I was blown away by this. I had no idea that this was going to be part of the job. So as I think about your career, and you've probably stood next to a zillion tarps in your career observing. You've said something. I think I saw it on Instagram or somewhere. You said something like, "Stay in the background, but always be around." Mm-hmm. So, talk about that for a minute. What does that mean? Because that's contributing in an unexpected way.
Yeah. I think that should be every good mental performance coach's motto, right? It's like, make sure you're always around. Like nobody's ever like, where are they? Are they ever out here? Why can't we ever see them? Right? Make sure you're always around, but make sure you also don't have to be in the middle of everything, right? Like I'm not in the middle of a huddle, like motivating people, like the movies and everything, right? I'm on the background, but I'm also standing behind the mounds when they're on the mound, right? I'm standing behind the turtle when they're hitting. All right. When there's BP, like I'm in the cages. You're just always around. So you're just a support system, but you're also, some of the best conversations happen in passing. They're like, Hannah, did you see that? I like, oh, that reminded me, I want to talk about this reset routine, where maybe they wouldn't have come up to my office had I not been there. And so it puts you in a good position to always be around, but never be overbearing. And I think it's a fine line, especially in mental performance coaching, because you're not on the field. You're not necessarily needed on the field. Like, you're not a pitching coach. You're not a hitting coach. But to be there, and to be there as support, and also show them that you're watching what they're doing and that you care about what they're doing and you're paying attention to maybe things that you've been working on, it just gives you more credibility, and you're always there. You're still with them, but you're not overbearing. And I think that's super important. But I have to say, I have a great tarp pulling story.
All right. I want to hear it. I was going to ask next. You came prepared.
I gotta share this. So I think it was my first year with the Phillies, and it's like this weird dynamic, right? Because like, you're a female. So like, everybody's kind of trying to get used to like females being there. And we have a few other females, and it's been awesome. And it's so cool. And they're so welcoming and figuring it out. But, there was this running joke of like, hey, like, females come help pull the tarp. And like, we're kind of in nicer dress clothes. We're not in our dirty, like, ballpark clothes. Like, we're in nicer clothes. And because we're not expecting to like roll in the dirt that day, like the coaches aren't, like, work up a sweat. And so, the first couple of times we didn't do it, we were like, that's so funny. Well, one day, like, one of the coaches walked by and was like, hey, Hannah, let's go. And like, actually put my name on the printed out tarp pull list. And I was like, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do it. And so I go out there. It's pouring rain. Everybody's panicking. I'm in nice dress clothes, and everybody's looking at me like, get inside. Like, what are you doing? Like, you don't have to pull this. Like, whatever. And I was like, heck no, I am pulling this tarp. And so ended up pulling it, got absolutely soaked, mud all over me. And like, from that day on, it was like the biggest respect, because they couldn't believe that I had gone out and pulled the tarp. And there was like a player of the day. We did this during, I think it was fall instructional league, but we did it. And like, every day there was a player that we popped up. And then the next day I was the player of the day because I pulled the tarp. And so I just thought that was so cool. And like, it's like such a little thing, but even that is like, okay, like, she gets it. Like, even though she didn't have to do that, right? It's like this respect thing. It's this like continuity thing. It's, we're all in this together and we're teammates, and it just like builds your credibility. But I absolutely love that story. And I don't think I've ever told her on a podcast. So well, I thought it'd be appropriate on Everyone Pulls the Tarp.
Well, here it is, right? This is the place where you're going to tell that story. I didn't realize at the time, and I probably that summer pulled the tarp 12 to 15 times, sometimes 2-3 times in a day, because the rain comes, the rain goes. You're trying to keep the field clean. I didn't realize what I was experiencing until I started to really reflect on it. And what I say, one of the best things that anybody can do when they're starting their career is work in minor league baseball, because in minor league baseball, everybody does everything. Like I say, everybody pulls the tarp. Not only did I pull the tarp, I was the mascot for 10 days. I was a Thunderbird for 10 days while the mascot was on his honeymoon. I did double headers in 95-degree heat. I went to camps and signed hundreds of autographs dressed as this bird. I parked cars. I filled up moon bounces. I worked the moon bounce. I hawked merchandise in the stand. Whatever needed to be done. I counted jerseys in the store. And the mindset was, there's no task above me. There's no task beneath me. We're all kind of in this together, right? And at the end of the day, this was also really fascinating to me. They shared some stat with me when I was working in minor league baseball that, 70% of the fans walking out of a minor league stadium at the end of the game don't know the final score. They're there for the entertainment and the family and the fun experience and cheaper hot dogs and cheaper beers than at the big leagues. Yeah. So you have to pull the tarp, right? You have to pull the tarp from a customer service standpoint. I remember, if I saw a kid just miss catching a foul ball and he was upset or she was upset, I'd go down to the clubhouse, I'd muddy up a ball and I'd bring it out to the kid, right? And I think little things like that are so important in whatever it is that you're doing these days, in business or in life, right? It's just, how can I make, teachers right now, we just talked about it. Teachers are being asked to do all kinds of different things. Doctors, nurses, everybody's doing different things. How can you challenge yourself to contribute, in these unexpected ways? You did it, Hannah, and like you said there, it kind of helped shape some of that respect and admiration around the organization.
Yeah, I love that mentality. Imagine if everybody in the whole world had that outlook on life. Like, everybody just like helping everyone, chipping in here, chipping in there. Like, What a world, what a difference the world would be than what it is right now.
Well, it would be. I tell people all the time, I sit here in this office studio and I look out the window and we have a FedEx delivery lady that if our newspaper, because I still get hard copy newspapers, so I actually feel bad canceling it this day and age. I want to keep them in business. But I have a hard copy newspaper at the bottom of the driveway. If I haven't picked it up, this woman who delivers our FedEx packages, she brings it up and she stacks it on the porch above the box. It just makes my day every time. It's it's little things like that, right? And like you said, if we can get the whole world to operate this way, wouldn't that be really cool? So let's talk about, okay, so you're going to get to Clearwater.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about what is the process. So you meet with the players, you size things up, you determine everybody's goals. Take me through it. What does it look like?
Yeah. So, well, we've been talking to them, all of the off season, and it's been a very long off season, especially for some of our minor leaguers who didn't have a season at all this year. So yeah, we get to spring training. We basically we try to meet with every single player during like the month of spring training, which is actually a really challenging task. There's 3 full-time mental skills coaches and like over 200, 250 players. And so we're all trying
in the whole organization, 3.
Yeah. In the whole, yeah. With a three and 1 part-time but spends most of his time in the Dominican, because we also have an academy with 2 teams in the Dominican Republic. So he crushes that there. But yeah, there's 3 of us with all that. And we have, roughly 50 days with like big league spring training and minor league spring training combined. And so it's all basically touch base. Where are you at? What are your expectations for this year? How was your off season? Supporting them. And then we also do a lot of group workshops. So, each player gets like roughly 4 to 5 group workshops during their spring training. And those are just kind of over whatever our theme is for the year. So like we had a different theme last year than we did the year before. And this year our theme got cut short. So we're going to bring that with a new perspective and a new spin on it this year after everything that we've kind of all gone through during this off-season period. So it's a lot of one-on-one meetings. It's a lot of group workshops. And we even do some mindfulness in the morning, some optional stuff there. And then we're just around, we're watching them, we're encouraging them, and just kind of busting our tails. And we're also having one-on-one conversations with staff members and seeing how we can support them and what some of their goals are this season and how we can work together. Tons of collaboration and just figuring out how we can not only support the players, but support the staff too, and their support of the players, and making sure all questions are answered. And it's crazy. Spring training is absolutely crazy. Mayhem. There's way too many people in a small environment. So that'll be interesting to see how all that plays out this year with COVID and everything. But it's crazy. It's crazy time. I'm absolutely exhausted. It's like 55 days straight, no off days. And it's crazy, but so fun. So much.
Well,
fun.
they say, the more people you talk to in baseball, they say spring training is, a little bit more relaxed and casual for the players, right? They jet out of there after 6 innings, especially the stars and the big leaguers. They get on the golf course. They can do some different things, spend some time with friends and family. They say the coaches, the trainers, and now I know the mental skills coaches are the ones who are real. There's no time for spring relaxing in spring training.
Yeah, no, it's early days and late nights, and it's weird. Like the last 3 years, like every time spring training's ended, I've like come home for a couple of days and like gotten really sick just because it's like my body's like catching up with everything that like we just grinded for 2 months straight. And so it's exhausting. So it's trying to make sure you're taking care of yourself and still working out, doing all of the important things while being incredibly busy. So it's challenging, but it's so rewarding at the end. Like, the work that we do is incredibly rewarding, like seeing guys buy in, seeing guys implement mental performance skills while they're playing, and then seeing them excited about them working and buying into it. It's pretty remarkable. So it's worth it.
So if you're somebody listening and you're starting, and now people are starting a new year. Sometimes people are starting a new job, whatever it is. How do you, what advice do you have for folks who want to set goals or set standards for themselves that they want to achieve?
For me, there's one main important thing when it comes to setting goals, and it's know where you are. I guess it's multiple things, but it's know where you are, right? Know where you want to go and know how to get there, right? But the most important thing you can ask yourself when you're setting your goals is, how are you going to achieve that goal? Don't just write out what the goal is. Don't just write out where you are, but how are you actually going to get there? Okay, you want to lose this weight? How are you going to do it? I'm going to eat healthier. How are you going to eat healthier? Well, I'm going to go to the grocery store every Monday. How are you going to go to the grocery store every Monday? Well, I'm going to tell my significant other, and we're going to go at 5:35 every Monday night, right? Like so specific to the point where you can't say how anymore, because that's how you're going to actually achieve it. Not just by saying it and like speaking it into existence. Do something, do actionable things every single day in order to make it come true. And so when it comes to goal setting, I love goal setting. Set your goals, big, high, low goals, everyday goals, year from now goals, set them, but make sure you have the plan on how you're going to achieve it. And then make sure you go back and adjust as you're working on it, right? It's not all going to go according to plan. And so if you need to adjust, but know how. Make sure you know how you're going to achieve it.
I talked recently on this show. I set my goals in 12-week increments. I think that I have bigger picture goals and longer range goals, but for me personally, 12 weeks is a great timeline. It gives me enough space to move the ball forward and do something significant. But it's also it's not like a too long of a horizon where I feel like I get lost and frustrated. And then I'm also one of these folks who I try and I've talked about this on this show, I try and really distill down like the difference between the input and the output. So like if the output, I gave an example earlier this week, the output is I want to read more books. So if I want to read 3 books over the next 12 weeks and they're each 300 pages, this month I want to read 300 pages. So I have to read 10 pages a day. So the goal is not to read 3 books over 12 weeks. My goal is to read 10 pages each night.
Love it.
And is that a fair way of looking at it?
Yeah. And I call it process over outcome, right? So you know what your outcome is. What's your process? What do you do on a daily basis? And that's actually one of my favorite questions when it comes to goal setting is what can I do today? So great. You had this goal for 3 months or 3 weeks and then 12 weeks and whatever it is. Great. What can you do today to get you closer to that goal? And that's what you did. You answered, I got to read 10 pages today. Or I don't have to, but I get to read 3 pages today. Like that's how I get to achieve my goal is by reading 3 pages today or 10 pages today. Because so often we get caught up in, 300 pages. Like that's a lot. Like that is a lot of pages. That's a lot of books, right? You want to do all these things. And sometimes that prevents us from even stopping. And so the question you really want to ask is, what can I do today? What is in my control? That's not too crazy, but that will get me closer to my goal. Regardless of how big or how small the step actually is, here's what I can do today. And it's read 10 pages.
Because that incremental step, does that incremental step create some momentum?
Yeah, absolutely. Small wins are like, you've probably heard the saying, like a body in motion stays in motion, right? It's like, especially in sports.
I haven't, but now I have, Hannah.
Okay. Well, it's like when your body is moving, you're like, it's easier to go versus when your feet are just like stuck in cement and then you have to start moving. And I think the same applies to mental performance and even reading a book, right? If you haven't picked up the book in a couple weeks, it's harder to pick it back up versus like, let me just read a page, right? And read a page. Okay. It's easier. Like we're still moving. So it's easier to continue moving rather than, I'm not feeling it today. I'm not going to read anything. Read one line. Read instead of maybe today you don't feel it. So you're not going to read 10 pages. You're going to read 10 words, right? Which maybe you sit down and you read 10 words and then you're like, okay, I can actually read this whole page. And then you're like, okay, and I can actually read 2. What? I have time. I'll read 10 pages, right? Versus like, I don't want to do this at all today, right? So it's like a body in motion stays in motion. A mind in motion stays in motion too. But also it's important to take breaks and to know when you need rest. Today is not my day. I'm not reading. Great. Tomorrow I'll read 15 or 20 pages, right? It's okay to rest too. So like, don't think I'm sitting here saying like grind it out 24/7 because I'm absolutely not, because rest is vital to success mentally and physically. But I think a little motion definitely leads to more motion.
We just have a few more minutes, Hannah. So I want to get to a couple more things if it's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So realistic goals. Okay. So and this applies, I think, to everybody. So a ball player, you meet one of the players in Clearwater and you're setting goals, and the player says, I want to be a 350 hitter. And the back of the baseball card says they've never been over a 280 hitter. Mm-hmm. How do you, it's no different than if you're a salesperson who has never sold, more than $1 million in software a year and now says, I'm going to sell 5.
Yeah.
How do you, from a mental skills perspective, how do you go about making sure the goals are realistic, but not setting them too low?
Yeah. I love that question. So, the first thing I would challenge that person is, do you think that's legitimately attainable this year? And if he's like, no, but I'm shooting for the stars, I'm like, what do you think is actually the best you can do that is attainable? Right? So maybe if he's been 280, maybe 300, like that's going to be incredibly challenging for him, but more attainable. And I'm like, you think you can legitimately get that? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, then that's where we're going to start. Right. So it's like, and okay. In the bigger picture, I don't really like creating outcome goals like that, like number oriented goals. Right. So it's even questioning like, okay, let's just put 300 out there instead of 350, something more realistic, but also that is incredibly challenging. And like the odds of you getting it are slim, right? But they're still there. There's still an odd that you could get that, a percentage you can get that. But also, how are you going to get 300? How are you going to hit 300? What do you have to do differently than last year? What do you have to improve from last year? What did you not do well last year that you need to throw out the window, right? How are you actually going to achieve that? And then how are you going to evaluate that? Right? So are you going to evaluate what you're doing every single day? Is that getting you closer to hitting your goal, or is it getting you farther away? Because really, it's helping them create that self-evaluation skill. Okay, 350 sounds great and good on paper, but there's literally no way you're going to hit 350. Like, and maybe there is, but like, I think it's our job to create that awareness. Like, is that seriously a realistically possible goal? And I mean, and if they say yes, then great. Then how are we going to do that? I'm not one to shut off goals or shut down goals, but I want them to tell me exactly how they're going to do it and how they're going to measure it and how they're going to hold themselves accountable, because I think that's the most important part. And honestly, I'd rather their goals be too high than too low. So.
Oh, I'm a huge believer. I mean, the goals should be high. I would always rather the goals be higher and missed, right? Because I think, if you're striving, like what are they, the line is, if you're striving for perfection and you end up close, you've had a pretty good run.
Exactly.
It's interesting. And again, I think it gets back to, what you were saying earlier. You said, you focus on processes over outcomes. Mm-hmm. I think it was.
Yep.
Just like I say, inputs over outputs. What are the little things? So I got to get in the cage more. I have to focus a little bit more on my the way I hit off-speed pitches, right? Like there's little things where you can break it down. I'd imagine where you could say, okay, this is my path to hitting for a better average, or hitting for more power, or selling more software, or being a better parent or teacher, whatever it is.
Yeah. And to that point, if you don't know what it is, if you don't know what's holding you back, that's when you need to go talk to a hitting coach, talk to a supervisor, talk to a manager, talk to someone that can show you, okay, this is what's holding you back. These are your strengths. Like, be careful changing anything with this. Like, we want these to stay the same, but here's where we can see some areas of improvement. And then, what I think is important is usually that's a physical component, especially in baseball and performing in high level sports. And so then I think it's like, okay, is there a mental component to this physical skill, right? Are you swinging at pitches you shouldn't be swinging at? Are you taking too many strikes? Are you fouling the ball off too many times? Whatever it is there a mental component to that, to make sure you're not just working on the physical techniques and then you nail down the technique and it's still an issue because it's something mental going on. So it's knowing your weaknesses and then determining, is this more physical? Is it more mental? Is it a combination? And then making sure you're working on whatever aspects are affected by that.
Okay, Hannah, I've got 2 quick questions for you. I want to leave all the listeners with 2 things that they can work on that can help them today. The first is the times that we're in right now are wild, right? Mm-hmm. We're all facing as a world more adversity than anyone could handle with the pandemic and everything that's going on around us. What's one tip for everybody who's listening to get more positive today?
I would say to get more positive today, don't fake it. So instead of like just being like, oh my goodness, the world sucks, it's okay, everything's fine, I'm okay, right? Because that doesn't last. It's realizing, like, be aware that whatever situation in front of you, it's not easy. Like, what we're going through is not easy. And then find something optimistic to stick on the tail end of that thought. So for example, like, the pandemic is not easy, but I know it's not going to last forever, right? Or the pandemic is not easy, but I've gotten the opportunity to do this, or I've gotten to record more podcasts, or I've gotten to make more connections or spend time with my kids. So it's like, don't pretend like whatever's happening isn't, because that doesn't fix that. It may fix it temporarily, but to fix it long-term and to have a more positive outlook long-term, you have to accept what's right in front of you and then choose to find something optimistic about it, whatever it is. I call it an optimistic cherry on top.
An optimistic cherry on top. Okay. I'm gonna work on that. The last question, Hannah. So again, whatever it is, everybody out there listening today is doing, whatever it is, what's one simple thing that they can do to try and perform better tomorrow?
Get into the present moment.
Get into the present moment.
Yeah, get into the present moment. When you are in the present moment, you're not stressing about the future. You're not worrying about the past. You are totally consumed in whatever is happening right in front of you. And you can do that in a multitude of ways. You can practice deep breathing. You can count your senses. Like, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell right now? And get you into that present moment. But the best performances come when you are fully engaged in the present moment and you're not stressed or panicked about the past or the future. You're just right here, right now in everything you do. You're better at driving. You're better at filming podcasts, recording podcasts. You're better at presentations. You're better at literally everything if you're in the present moment. And that also gives you a better chance to enjoy it, because it's hard to enjoy things when you're not even in that moment. And so when you're enjoying something and you're in the present moment, chances are you're going to be better at it.
Hannah, this has been so much fun. I've learned a ton. I could ask you questions all day. I hope that every listener is going to take one of these lessons and put it into action today, tomorrow, and into the future. For everyone out there, Hannah is an incredible expert on all these topics. She was just named the #2 LinkedIn voice in the sports category. She's got a fantastic content series called Mental Sweat Monday, which is on Instagram. I'm not sure if it's anywhere else. Hannah, where else can people find more of these great insights from Hannah Huesman?
Yeah, it's on Instagram, it's on Twitter, and LinkedIn. So just search Hannah Huesman and you'll find it.
Hannah, this has been so much fun. I wish I was a better baseball player so I could be in the Phillies organization and learn from you every day for 55 days straight in Clearwater in a couple months. Safe travels to Florida and keep pulling the tarp.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me today.
Take care.